My husband just asked me to give up my hobby and distance myself from my hobby friends. I really don't want to agree to this. What should I do? I didn't see it coming, honestly. We were sipping our morning coffee like any other Saturday, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, our dog snoozing under the table. That's when Alex, my husband, looked up from his cup and dropped the bomb. I think you should quit the pottery group, he said. And maybe, let go of those friends. I blinked at him, unsure if I'd heard right. What? Why? He set his mug down with deliberate calm, the way he does when he thinks he's about to say something wise or profound. It's taking up too much of your time. Between work, the house, and us, I feel like I don't know, last on the list. Maybe it's time to focus on what really matters. What really matters? My mind reeled. Wasn't this exactly what we'd agreed on when we talked about finding a balance? Pottery was my escape, my creative space. The friends I'd made there, some of the most supportive, vibrant people I'd ever met, were a big part of why I felt grounded. I leaned back in my chair, clutching my cup like it could shield me. Alex, you've never mentioned this before. Why now? Did something happen? He sighed, rubbing his temple as if he were already tired of this conversation. It's not about anything specific. It's just, we barely have time for each other. You're always rushing off to some class or exhibition, and when you're home, it's like your mind is somewhere else. It feels like I'm competing with a group of strangers for your attention. Strangers? That stung. These were people who cheered me on when I doubted myself, who celebrated my small wins like they were their own. I tried to keep my voice steady. Alex, this isn't about me ignoring you. Pottery makes me happy. It's part of who I am. But at what cost? He shot back. His voice was firmer now, a hint of frustration seeping through. Maybe it's time to grow up. Hobbies are fine, but they shouldn't come before your marriage. My chest tightened. Was this really about us? Or was it about control? The thought lingered unspoken as I stared at him, wondering when my safe, sunny kitchen had turned into a battleground. The rest of the weekend passed in a tense fog. Alex acted like nothing had happened, chatting casually about errands and dinner plans while I replayed his words on a loop. Hobbies shouldn't come before your marriage. What did that even mean? By Sunday evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. As we sat on the couch watching TV, I muted the show and turned to him. Alex, we need to talk. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't look at me. About what? About what you said yesterday. About me quitting pottery. It's been bothering me, and I need to understand, what exactly is the problem? Is it really about time, or is there something else you're not telling me? He sighed deeply, rubbing his hands together. I don't feel like I'm part of your life anymore. You spend so much time with those people. What's her name? Jessica? The one who calls you all the time? You're always texting or planning something with them. It's like you've got this whole other world I don't fit into. I frowned. Jessica is my friend, Alex. She's been there for me through a lot. You can't expect me to just cut her off. It's not just her, he said, finally turning to meet my gaze. It's all of it. You get so wrapped up in your projects and your group meetings. I'm sitting here, waiting for you to notice me, but you're off somewhere else. It's like I'm invisible. His words hit me harder than I expected. I'd never thought of Alex as someone who needed constant attention. He'd always been so self-assured, so independent. I didn't realize you felt that way, I admitted softly. But, Alex, this hobby, it's not just a distraction. It's something that keeps me grounded, something that gives me joy. Can't you see that? He shook his head. All I see is a wife who doesn't have time for her husband. I'm not asking for much, just a little more of you. Is that so wrong? It felt like we were speaking different languages. For him, this was about priorities. For me, it was about identity. Alex, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I can make more time for us. But I can't give up pottery. I won't. It's part of who I am, and I can't just erase that. You wouldn't ask me to stop being me, would you? His jaw tightened, and he stood abruptly. Maybe I wouldn't have to ask if you cared as much about us as you do about your clay and your friends. I watched him walk away, my heart sinking into the pit of my stomach. For the first time, I wondered if this was about more than pottery. Was our relationship strong enough to survive this? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, Alex's words echoed in my mind. Maybe I wouldn't have to ask if you cared as much about us as you do about your clay and your friends. By Monday morning, I decided I needed clarity. If this was about more than my pottery, I needed to know. After Alex left for work, I did something I hadn't done in a while. I skipped my usual studio session and called Jessica. She picked up on the second ring. "What's up, girl?" she asked, her voice warm and cheerful. "Don't tell me you're skipping class to actually get some sleep for once." I smiled, despite myself. "No, I just needed to talk." "Are you free for coffee?" An hour later, we were sitting in our usual spot at the cafe near the studio. Jessica listened intently as I recounted everything, her expression shifting between concern and frustration. "So, let me get this straight," she said, setting down her cup with a sharp clink. "Alex thinks your hobby is a threat to your marriage?" "It's not just the hobby," I said, stirring my tea mindlessly. "He says he feels like I'm not present, that I'm too wrapped up in it all." Jessica leaned back, crossing her arms. "That's rich. You've been bending over backward trying to juggle everything, work, the house, him. And let's not forget, this hobby of yours started because he thought you needed something to relax." She had a point. When I first joined the pottery class 2 years ago, Alex had been the one encouraging me. "You need something for yourself," he'd said, practically pushing me out the door. Now it felt like he was punishing me for taking his advice. "Do you think I'm in the wrong?" I asked hesitantly. Jessica's eyes softened. "No, I don't. But I do think there's more going on with Alex than he's letting on. This doesn't sound like it's just about pottery. Maybe he's feeling insecure or, I don't know, stuck in his own rut?" The thought hadn't crossed my mind, but now it gnawed at me. Had Alex been quietly struggling while I was too busy spinning clay and chatting with friends to notice? Maybe, I admitted. But how do I even bring that up without making it worse? Jessica smiled, a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. "Simple. Ask him straight up. But don't let him guilt-trip you. This is your life too, remember?" As I left the cafe, her words stayed with me. I knew I needed to talk to Alex again, but this time I had to go deeper. If this was going to work, we couldn't just argue about pottery. We had to figure out what was really going on beneath the surface. That evening, the house was quiet. Alex sat on the couch, half-heartedly scrolling through his phone while the TV played some forgettable show in the background. I stood in the doorway for a moment, gathering my courage. I knew this conversation could go one of two ways. We'd either break through the wall between us or build it higher. I walked over and sat down next to him, close enough to feel his warmth, but not so close that he'd feel cornered. "Alex," I said softly, "can we talk?" He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the phone screen. Finally, he set it down and turned to me, guarded. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about what you said," I began, choosing my words carefully. "About the pottery and my friends. I get why you feel like you're not a priority, and I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way. But I don't think this is just about me being busy. Is it?" He frowned, his gaze dropping to the floor. For a long moment, he didn't speak. I waited, the silence stretching between us like a taut wire. Finally, he sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "It's not just the pottery," he admitted. "It's everything. Lately, I've been feeling stuck. Like I'm just spinning my wheels while you're out there living this vibrant, exciting life. You've got this hobby you're passionate about, these friends who are always there for you. And me? I don't have any of that. I go to work, I come home, and that's it. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. I'd been so focused on defending my own need for independence and creativity, I hadn't realized how isolated he must have felt. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked gently. I had no idea you were feeling this way. He shrugged, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of his emotions was finally pressing down on him. Because it's embarrassing, he said quietly. I'm supposed to be the strong one, the guy who has it all together. But lately, I don't know. I feel like I'm failing. As a husband, as a person. I reached out and placed my hand on his. He flinched at first, but didn't pull away. Alex, you're not failing, I said firmly. You're my husband, and you mean the world to me. But I can't help you if I don't know what's going on. His eyes met mine, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the vulnerability he usually worked so hard to hide. I think I've just been jealous, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Of how much joy you get from pottery. Of the friends you've made. It feels like I've been left behind. Hearing him say that broke my heart. I wanted to argue, to tell him he hadn't been left behind, but I knew that wasn't how he felt. This wasn't about facts or logic, it was about emotions. You don't have to feel left behind, I said. If you want something like that, something that makes you feel alive again, we can find it. Together. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. I don't even know where to start. I don't have any hobbies. I don't even know what I'd enjoy anymore. Then let's figure it out, I said, squeezing his hand. Remember when we first started dating, and you told me you wanted to learn photography? Or how you used to talk about trying a cooking class? There's so much out there, Alex. We just have to find what speaks to you. He looked at me, his expression softening. You'd help me with that? Of course I would, I said. You've been my biggest supporter all these years, even when I didn't realize it. Let me be that for you now. For the first time in days, Alex smiled. It wasn't a big smile, more of a tentative, hopeful one, but it was a start. Okay, he said. Maybe I could try something. I don't know what yet, but, maybe. That's all I need, I said, leaning against him. Just take the first step. The rest will come. As we sat there, I felt a cautious sense of hope. We still had work to do, but for the first time, it felt like we were on the same side, ready to face the challenges together. In the days that followed, Alex's confession lingered in my mind. It wasn't just about my pottery or his feelings of neglect, it was about rediscovering a balance that allowed us both to feel seen and supported. That weekend, I decided to take the first step. Over breakfast, I slid a small notebook across the table toward Alex. What's this? He asked, flipping it open to see the first blank page. It's an idea book, I said with a smile. We're going to fill it with things you've always wanted to do but never tried, hobbies, places to visit, whatever comes to mind. Alex frowned slightly. I don't know if I have anything like that. Sure, you do, I said, leaning forward. Remember when we first started dating? You used to talk about wanting to learn how to cook something fancy, like Gordon Ramsay level. Or that time you mentioned trying out archery after watching that medieval show you loved? He chuckled, the tension in his shoulders easing a little. Yeah, I guess I did say that. Well, now's your chance, I said, nudging the notebook closer. Let's write them down and figure out what excites you. No pressure, just explore. Over the next hour, we brainstormed together. At first, he hesitated, but as the ideas started flowing, his enthusiasm grew. By the end, the notebook was filled with possibilities, joining a cooking class, trying rock climbing, volunteering at a local animal shelter, even taking a weekend photography workshop. Okay, I said, tapping the list. First step, pick one thing to try this month. We'll sign up together, and I'll be your cheerleader. You'll really come with me? he asked, looking both touched and skeptical. Of course, I said. We're a team, remember? Besides, if it's fun, maybe I'll find a new hobby too. The next few weeks felt like a small but significant shift in our lives. Alex chose a cooking class, and though I wasn't the most graceful with a knife, we had fun laughing at our mistakes and learning together. It gave us something new to talk about, something that wasn't about work, chores, or the strain between us. But I didn't forget about pottery. One evening after class, as we were cleaning up in the kitchen, Alex surprised me. Hey, he said, drying his hands. When's your next pottery group thing? I've been thinking. I don't want you to quit. I can see how much it means to you, and I don't want to take that away. I stared at him, stunned. Really? He nodded, his expression sincere. Yeah. I still want us to spend more time together, but I get it now, it's not about choosing me over your hobbies or your friends. It's about finding a way to make both work. Relief washed over me, and I reached out to hug him. Thank you, I whispered. That means so much. From then on, we found a rhythm. I made an effort to carve out more time for us, even if it meant skipping a pottery session now and then. And Alex started embracing his own passions, diving headfirst into cooking and even dabbling in photography. One Saturday, he surprised me by showing up at my pottery studio with coffee and a bag of pastries. Thought I'd see what all the fuss is about, he said with a grin. As he watched me shape clay on the wheel, I realized how far we'd come. Our marriage wasn't perfect, far from it. But we were learning, growing, and finding new ways to support each other without losing ourselves in the process. In the end, it wasn't about giving up who we were as individuals. It was about creating a life where we could both thrive, together and apart. What do you think about the resolution? Do you think Alex's approach shows growth, or is there more the couple could work on? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.